OM Jesus! We are back with Mortal Kombat 11, and everyone is dead.
I like this moment where he comes back to talk to the Elder Gods a second time, and they're just all gone. They're dead. Or they're powerless, or something.
So really it's like no actual consequence of the plot, because they were never actually helpful in the first place.
Yeah, but then there's Cetrion here, who's still around, and she basically tells Raiden that this entire situation arose because Raiden got too tyrannical about fighting evil afterward and overstepped his bounds. So after Shinnok was beaten, the fact that he more or less rendered Shinnok entirely impotent with his execution is what caused Kronika to try and rewrite time to rebalance good and evil.
What I find strange about this is that this is kind of like a DBZ Power Levels kind of thing, which is confusing, because you have all the Elder Gods, which cannot apparently stop Kronika from fucking with time. You have Cetrion here, who apparently just murdered the shit out of all the other Elder Gods, and they couldn't stop her. And then you have Raiden, who is a lesser god, to my understanding, who also can't be stopped by the Elder Gods.
Did Cetrion kill the Elder Gods? I got the impression that Cetrion was one of the Elder Gods that was on the chairs that he was talking with.
Well, she was, but where are all the other Elder... I mean, you can see like the House of the Elder Gods is all fucked up.
They said something about their powers were fading, and I just assumed that they had faded. Like, they're not able to do anything anymore.
Okay, they've been written out of time or some shit now. I don't know.
Well, they said that was going to be a result of what Kronika was doing.
Okay, so maybe it's just a little bit murky in the storytelling then, because I assume they'd been killed by Cetrion with the way that scene played out.
And I like the comparison and contrast between young Jax and old Jax, because like, there's such a difference in appearance and personality between them that it's like, well, this is really what 20 years can do to you. It's
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it you get bitter and twisted at the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not just really for someone who's been like a veteran of like combat and seen a lot of things like Jax does. That just happens to regular people.
Yeah.
So it is a good sort of demonstration of like the optimism of youth versus like what happens when you do get older and you do just like get beat on by life, basically.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, you get a bit of it with Sonya's personality. Like, she's a lot more of a hard ass when she's older, but you don't see as much of it directly because her future self dies before her young self enters the story. And then there's Johnny Cage.
Take off the shades.
Who?
Oh, there's a great scene with that coming up. Trust me.
Johnny Cage, his younger self was an absolute douchebag, but he still sort of gets along with him because there's still a little bit of that left in him. But then his younger self says something really dumb, and he just has to take his younger self by the ear and kick his own ass. Yeah, here it is.
That's like the fuck
everyone
you say?
in the room just look at him like, what? Even his daughter, and it's just like, okay, enough is enough.
Destiny?
You're
tap
coming
that
with
ass.
Me. You need a timeout. And I like the Johnny Cage interactions, especially because is this cartoonish expression of, I think, what we all feel about our 20 years younger selves at some point in time, where we just want to punch our younger selves in the frickin' face.
Yeah, there's always those moments where you just want to go back in time and just be like, you know what, just don't do that thing. Just trust me, you don't want to do that.
It kind of reminds me of the 12th Doctor meeting the First Doctor, and they make a lot of jokes at the First Doctor's expense about, like, sexist stereotypes back in the day when Doctor Who first came out, and how casually the First Doctor will say things that wouldn't fly on TV today, and the 12th Doctor just gets this look on his face. He's like, no, stop, please.
What are you doing? Stop.
and what is it, Bill, the companion, the 12th Doctor's companion for that season, always just looks at him with this look on her face like she's gonna laugh. I do like this scene, though. This is great.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, there's some great writing in this game, absolutely. Was I retarded? I don't remember being retarded.
Hungry people eat lunch. Humble people serve it. That was an asshole. Hollywood.
Did we ever touch on Johnny Cage's father before this scene? Like, was
I
that
don't
ever
think so,
brought up?
no. Here we go, here's the glasses, Nate. There you go.
I mean, he has the personality of someone whose male role models were complete dickbags, but
So who was Johnny's father? I don't even know this.
like, was it ever mentioned in any game before this that his father was an
Oh.
asshole?
I don't think so. I think because that's always been the thing is that Johnny Cage has just been kind of like that d-bag.
Yeah, I mean,
type.
it's easy to assume that someone who is as big a douchebag as Johnny Cage would have an equally douchebaggish father, but was it ever, like, acknowledged in the story?
Yeah. And again, like if you want to talk about the writing, though, I think there is that interesting comparison there again, where it's like the younger version is saying like, "This is what Dad said. We have to do what Dad says," whereas like the older version's like, "No, we really don't have to do what Dad says."
I love a moment where if you do like the ball buster as older Johnny and younger Johnny, you just see Cassie just disappear from existence. Bye, son.
Is that still in this game?
Yeah, he still has the ball buster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Whenever
It's a
that
signature move.
whenever that happens
is,
in a
yeah.
fight, it's uncomfortable.
I think that was the point.
Although it is funny that the move still plays out if you're fighting a female character. They just don't have testicles to explode. So
Well, yeah. No, obviously, none of us being chicks, but I have heard that getting hit in the lady parts does hurt quite a bit.
yeah, it is. It's just harder to hit the target. The thing a lot of people misunderstand about groin strikes is it's not just testicles that really hurt. There's also like a certain place to hit where you can deal some serious damage, and you don't want to hit someone in that place, whether they're a guy or not, because you risk some pretty serious injury to them. So yeah, the Hollywood joke where if you kick a girl in the crotch and it has no effect, inaccurate.
Yeah. Also, that I've done Mortal Kombat. I've done Taekwondo, and I actually did get to a black belt in that. And they did tell us multiple times that just don't go for the groin in general, because it's also, aside from like the kind of unpleasantness that you're talking about, it's just a really hard place in the body to hit.
Yeah.
Like to clearly hit someone in the groin, not easy.
Yeah. Like okay, it's a major weak point for guys in particular, but because it's a major weak point for guys in particular, you're never going to land that attack.
Unless they're just standing there with their legs spread, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, unless you catch them totally unawares. It's something that any guy who is fighting you is going to be defending against.
Yeah, subconsciously or not.
Yeah. This scene was
again,
kind of... I like this scene where young Sonya finds out her daughter left her behind and confronts her about it, because she's not as mature as her older herself. Like, it's the one time that's brought up, that she hasn't got the experience or, the hardened mind that her older self has, and she's just hit emotionally by this idea that her daughter left her behind.
Well, even that, I mean, like, if you found out that your old self died, and you found out that someone else was responsible for it, wouldn't you just immediately make that leap of logic as well?
Yeah, somewhat. But
It's a pretty easy jump to make.
she also didn't fully read the report, so she jumped to a conclusion there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But it's easy to get pissed off about. Like, you would get pissed off about that without really sort of, thinking about it too much, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, it's a conflict that gets resolved pretty quickly. Like, at the end of Sonya's chapter, she just tells Cassie she read the report and that she made the right call.
Yeah.
But, it was a nice moment,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Aaron Black is here to fuck shit up.
Aaron Black is the most chill person in the cast about being on a different side after the time travel than he was originally, because he's just like, yeah, I go where the money is, I go where the winners are. Fuck you.
Here's the confusing thing I find about Kano, though. Is like earlier in the story, they're like, "Oh, can you fix Cyrax? Can you scan with your magic eye?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, he's got some damage to his secretary, but the rest of it's fine." I can't even do a bad Australian accent. point is that like Kano is like rough as guts and does not strike me as the smartest person or in any situation. And yet it's like, yeah, he can totally repair robots and build them.
Well, he's probably just taking information readouts from his robot eye and repeating them. I just bet he hires other people to do the actual fixing.
What if he scans them with his eye and it's actually got Clippy in the corner going, it looks like you're trying to repair a cyborg. Would you like help?
This was great.
Oh, that's freaky like Friday. They shot our face, Johnny. They shot our face.
Our face.
He keeps a hand mirror on him. Oh God, this testosterone-fueled asshole keeps a hand mirror on him.
This is toxic masculinity at its finest.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Now that's just vanity, man. I mean, that's the most unmanly thing that such a manly guy could ever do. It's just irony at its finest, is what it is. Johnny Cage is like Johnny works in this game both in his future self and his past self equally well, I find, and I don't know why, but I just find it so charming in a way that I didn't necessarily find him in Mortal Kombat 10. Like, honestly, I found Johnny Cage a bit boring in Mortal Kombat 10. He had some good lines, but he wasn't, all that interesting. But here, with his past self and his future self together, it's a really great dynamic.
I just realized there's a huge missed opportunity in this game for Aaron Black having an older version and a younger version of himself, because like, you could have the older version of Aaron Black being like the cool Clint Eastwood type cowboy that we're seeing here, and the younger version of Aaron Black being dressed as Marty McFly from Back to the Future 3.
Yeah, there isn't really much to Aaron Black's past and future self here, is there? He's just kind of...
He just kind of exists, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to see him wearing that really bad, like, country and western cowboy gear. With all the tassels and shit hanging off of it.
Yeah, well, they do a fair amount of interesting stuff with, like, the most prominent characters when it comes to the time travel. But for the most part, they missed a lot of opportunities, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But,
I actually do find the relationship between young Sonya and Cassie to be quite interesting. That like here, because she mentions it early on, it's like, oh, I have a mother now who's young enough to be my sister, and like that's an interesting concept, and it never really gets explored.
Well, sort of. The idea of time travel in which characters who don't get along in the past find out that they get together in the future and have a kid is not exactly original storytelling. It's happened quite a lot, both in like pop culture and in fan fiction. Fan fiction loves messing around with that kind of stuff. Just dive into the Harry Potter fan fiction section and take a shot every time you find a story about going back in time to when James Potter and Lily Potter were teenagers and reacting to the fact that they have a kid together, and you'll be dead within an hour.
Yeah. Well, that was actually how Back to the Future got written in the first place. Is that the writer who did that? He said he was going through his dad's attic and found like a bunch of his high school memorabilia, and he started to wonder what it would have been like if he could have met his father as a teenager.
Yeah. I like this moment where Johnny's about to run out with a gun, but then he remembers that there's a tank. So he just comes out with the tank. I mean,
the only way it could have been better was if like it came out with like the young Johnny, and the young Johnny was going like dun 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 dun.
No, it plays Xanadu instead when he comes out, and then he switches it over.
Okay, I have to give this story credit. Like most fighting games, they have to contrive a reason for characters to get down mano a mano. In this game, people come out with the big guns. The big guns have to be taken away in the cutscene before the fight starts. But they usually do manage to do quite a bit of damage, mostly to the red shirts, admittedly. But, they use the big guns to good effect, and it's a part of the story. So
they have to Metroid that shit.
Time to destroy the Shagohod.
Dude, I fucking love that scene in Metal Gear Solid 3. Like the whole cutscene of where you're racing to get away from the Shadow God is one of the best fucking scenes in any game ever.
Metal Gear Solid 3 has a lot of those scenes in it.
That's true, yes. But that one, to me, really stands out as one of the just, like, classic scenes in video games. Racing the Shadow God is just fucking amazing.
Yeah.
If only destroying the Shadow God was that easy. Or at the very least, knocking it off its treads.
Yeah, that's true.
I like this
Sadly,
moment where Johnny is like, okay, it's coming in for a dive. I'm just going to blow it up by blowing up my tank.
Because that works.
It works. Yeah, that's the amazing thing. Just like, kaboom.
Good thing I started action movies to know this shit will just automatically go my way.
I've done enough action movies to know this will work.
The thing
I've been in enough action movies to know this will work.
The thing about Johnny Cage as a character is that he is an action movie hero if an action movie hero were real and acting in action movies, with all the positive and negative that would mean. And that basically means that all the obnoxious shit that action heroes do in movies that we find so amusing, but would be obnoxious in real life, is obnoxious to everyone around him. And that's what makes the character, really. He's like, if you met a real-life Dante, you'd want to punch him in the face, too. So, he's
I don't know,
that guy.
Dante's pretty cool. I don't know if I'd go that far.
Nah, you'd want to punch him in the face. He's only cool because he's fictional. He's like House, or any number of other obnoxious characters in pop culture.
We have... That's the term we have for that is bunny ears lawyer.
Yeah. I mean, we find that stuff as entertaining as we do because it's not real. Like, we don't have to interact with that person, so we can just let loose, shut our brains off, and enjoy the quips and the antics.
Okay. I'll have to give some thought to that. I'm still not sold on this, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
I just punched a robot.
Well, there's a reason there's a reason characters in those stories react badly to it, even while we're laughing. But that's part of the joke.
That is true, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Like, Devil May Cry 5, you have Nero at the start of it being very pissed off with Dante because they called him dead weight.
They burned her face, Johnny.
So when was
This stage is interesting to me because this is kind of opposite of the Dragon Grotto Lair stage, where this stage was in the beta, so you saw the stage a lot, and it is actually quite boring to look at.
Somewhat. But, you know, desert with guns. A desert can be interesting and majestic to look at, as long as that's not all you're looking at, you know? So, it's good when it's a part of the variety, but not so much when it's the only thing you see.